Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. Today we are going to do the second half of Jeremiah 22. So this will be the prophet Yirmiyahu 22b. This is Saul Weinreb, the host of the podcast, and welcome back. In the the first half of this chapter, we learned of Yirmiyahu's speech to the king, to the house of the king, explaining what needs to be done in order to save the kingdom for the future, establish justice, establish righteousness, establish peace, end oppression, treat the poor, treat the widow, treat the orphan, treat the stranger, treat the convert properly, and then the kingdom will be saved. Otherwise, if you stay in your fancy house and you do not treat people properly and you spill innocent blood, this kingdom will not last. That was the message of the first half. Once that message has been delivered, the result of that message is what the prophet is going to be speaking about today. What's going to happen because you're obviously not listening to this message. Lachein, therefore, this is verse 18, Ko Amar Adonai El Yehoyakim ben Yoshio melech Yehuda. So says God to Yehoyakim, who is the son of Josiah, the king of Yehuda. Lo yispedu lo, because you are not going and you are not listening to this message, and because you are continuing in your corrupt ways, therefore, upon your death, lo yispedu lo, they will not even eulogize you. No one will even cry out, Hoi achi v'hoi achos. What happened to my brother? What happened to my sister? No one's going to cry about you like that. No one's going to care when you're gone. Lo yispedu lo, no one will cry over you and say, Hoi adon, where is my master? V'hoi hodo, and where is his majesty? No one will care. He will be gone, and that will be the end of it. Kivurat chamori kover, you will be buried like a donkey is buried, not like a king. Sachov v'hashlech, you will be pulled out dragged out of the gates of Yerushalayim, mehalol shar Yerushalayim, and thrown out upon the fields and left lying out there like an animal. Ali halavanon, go ahead, climb upon the mountains of Lebanon, Utzaki, and cry out. This is a reference to the worship of the idols that was going on. You typically on mountaintops, on the high hills. We've seen that in numerous places. Go ahead, cry on the hills of Lebanon. Uva Bashan tani kolech, and go out and raise your voice in Bashan, and go ahead and cry. Vitzaki me'avarim, go ahead and scream to the Lord from the places called Avarim. Go ahead, try to ask for help. Find help from all of the places that you've looked, whether they were from idols or whether they were from other nations. They were constantly looking to other places. Let's go to Egypt. Let's go to Assyria. Let's go sign alliances, rather than looking to God. Go ahead and cry. Ki nishberu kol ma'avayich. All of your lovers, all of those people that you've tried to sign treaties with and contracts with for protection, they are all broken. They are all gone. Babylon has conquered them all. They are all gone. You cannot rely upon them. You can only rely upon God. Verse 21, Dibarti eilecha b'shal vosayach. I spoke to you, I explained this to you when you were at peace, during the times when you were not in danger. I told you then how to behave. Amarta, but then you said, Lo eshma, I will not listen. Then you didn't listen. I told you then what I wanted from you. I told you then that what I wanted was justice. What I wanted was righteousness. What I wanted was for you to care for the poor. What I wanted was honesty. I wanted kindness. I wanted empathy. But no, you did not listen. Zed darkech minu rayach. This is how you have been acting all the way back from the beginning days. Kilo shamata b'koli, because you did not listen to me. You did not listen to what I was asking you to do, so says God. Therefore, verse 22, Kol ro'ayech, Because you did not look to me, you did not listen to me, but rather you looked to everything else and everywhere else for help. All of those of your shepherds, all of those people you look to for leadership, all of those nations that you thought were powerful and could protect you, tir'eh ruach, they will be devoured by the wind. They will be destroyed by nothing, because they will be wiped out as well. As we know from history, all of those kingdoms were wiped out from the kingdom of Babylon. Eventually the kingdom of Babylon was also wiped out. None of those physical sources and symbols of power in the world ever mean anything. They're not forever. They're gone when God decides them to be gone. Only God remains the whole time. Umahavayach, and those that have loved you. In other words, when you had those meetings with those other kings, and you signed all these treaties and agreements, they're also going to end up going into captivity. At that point, then you will feel the shame and the embarrassment because of all of the evil that you have done. In the end, it will be the result. Your humiliation will come as a result of what you've done wrong, and nothing else will save you. Only coming to God, only getting rid of the evil, only changing your ways is permanent and real and will save you. Yoshavt Balvanon, she who lives in Lebanon, Mikunant Arozim, she who lives surrounded in, and I saw the translation, nestled among the cedars, nestled, because it's the language of Mikunant is from the root of a kan, which is a nest. Remember, Rashi points out that this is referring back to the first half of this chapter, where he criticized the king for paneling his walls with fancy cedar wood from Lebanon, making a fancy, beautiful house, thinking that because I'm surrounded by these fancy cedars, fancy walls, therefore, that makes me something special, that makes me something big. Well, you who lives in that house that is paneled by the cedar wood, ma nechant bevoloch chavolim, how much chen, how much grace and beauty will you have when the suffering comes? Those cedar walls are not going to save you when the enemy is surrounding you. Chil kayoleda, by then you will have suffering and pain like the birth pangs of a woman in labor. The image of a pain of a woman in childbirth is a common image used by the prophets to describe extreme pain, because it is something that everyone and anyone, whether they had lived through war or famine or plague or whatever, even people that have lived through supposedly good times, know, at least whether they're a woman and they've experienced it, or at least they know from experience that they've seen it or heard it, they understand that as an image of real terrible pain. It's an image that everyone can grasp. I don't mean that everyone has experienced it. Of course, men cannot experience or never do, but they can at least see, they can feel, they can know. It's a pain that's experienced regularly by human beings, no matter what the situation is of their particular life. So this is an image that the prophet often draws upon. When people are at peace, he predicts pain like the pain of childbirth. Chai ani no'am Adonai, I swear by myself, says God. Again, this is the strongest, can't imagine a stronger declaration than God swearing by himself. Ki im yeh Kanyahu ben Yehoyakim melech Yehuda, that even if Kanyahu is a shortened version of the name Yehoyachin, and it's like a derogatory way. It's a nickname. It's like saying, he's Yehoyachin, he's just a Kanyahu. That's just, it's calling him by a very derogatory name, a way to make fun of the king's name. Yehoyachin, who happens to be the son of Yehoyakim, who, as we know, is the son of Josiah, the king of Yehuda. Chosam al yamini, even if he was the signet ring that is on my right hand. Now, the Radak points out that the king's seal that he wore on his right hand, he would never remove. It's a symbol of something that was always on his right hand. The king always had his seal on his right hand, whether he was awake or asleep or bathing, it was always there. But even if Kanyahu, what God is saying, was my seal. In other words, no matter how close he is to me, I will take him away because of his injustice. Ki misham et kencha, because I will tear you off, for I will tear you off, even from there, even from my right hand. And what will I do with you? Nesaticha biyad mevakshe nafshecha. I'm going to hand you over to those who seek your life, who seek to either kill you or seek to take you away into captivity. I'm going to give you right over into the hands of those that you are afraid of. You're so afraid of those enemies. I'm going to hand you right over to them. I'm going to hand you right over to Nebuchadrezzar, the king of Babylon, and to the Chaldeans who accompany him. The Chaldeans being allied with the Babylonians. I'm going to hand you right over to the enemies. Verse 26, Veheitalti otcha v'et imcha, and I'm going to throw you out of this Jerusalem, you and your mother, Asher yiladatcha, the woman who, the royal mother who gave birth to you. Allah eretz acheres, I'm going to throw you out and throw you right out onto another land, Asher lo yiladtem sham, a land which you were not born there, v'sham tamutu, and there you will meet your death. And to the land where you are so arrogant and haughty to think that you're going to come back. You think because as the commentaries point out, all of those false prophets who are walking around saying, oh, don't worry, nothing's going to happen, and if you do go to Babylon, don't worry, you'll come back. And the arrogance with which you think that you're going to come back without having to do any work, without having to change your ways, without having to be righteous, without having to act properly, you still think you're going to come back. And you're so arrogant to think that just because you're the king, you're going to come back. No, Shama lo yashuvu, you will never come back to this land. Ha'etzev nivzeh, this is like a rhetorical question here. Etzev is translated by the Radak as a idol. And when a country is attacked and conquered in those days, the Etzev, the idol, its god, would of course be one of the first items to be smashed by the attackers, to show that our God is stronger than your God. And are you, the king Kanyahu, which is again a derogatory name for Yehoiachin, are you just like one of those smashed idols from one of those conquered enemies? Ha'etzev nivzen nafutz. You are just one of those smashed idols that is disgraced and crushed and spread out all over the place when the enemy comes. Is that what you are, you person, Kanyahu? Im kli and chayfetz bo, are you just like a vessel that nobody cares about, that nobody wants anymore? Maduahu taluhu v'zaro, why is it that he, Kanyahu, the king, and his children were thrown out of the land, v'hushluchu, and they were cast away ala aretz, onto the land asher lo yado, that they do not know? What is it? Is this all you are? You're a nothing. You're just a useless idol, a useless vessel that was crushed and thrown away. Is this what happens? Unfortunately, the unwritten answer to that question is yes, that is what you have become. Eretz, eretz, aretz, tishem'i dvar Adonai. This is the word of the prophet himself crying out to the land, the people, the country, the people, eretz, eretz, eretz. 3 times he repeats those words. Please, people, listen to the word of God, so that this doesn't happen. Our king doesn't end up being just a smashed idol that no one cares about, a smashed vessel that no one needs. Ko amar Adonai, so says God, kitvu et ish azeh ariri, write off this man as a man without children. The idea being that this king will be the end of the line. This king will be the end of the dynasty of David. He is ariri, he is childless, because the lineage of the kingdom of David is going to end with him. Gever lo yitzlach biyamav, he is a man that will not be successful at all in his day. Why? Ki lo yitzlach mizaro. None of his offspring will be successful to continue the dynasty of David. Ish yoshev al kisei David. None will be a man who can sit upon the throne the lofty and important throne of David, Umoshel Od Yehuda. None of them will ever rule again in Yehuda. It will not be coming from Kanyahu, which was the derogatory name for Yehoiachin. This concludes chapter 22. Thank you so much for studying chapter 22 together. Looking forward to studying chapter 23 and, of course, the remainder of the book of Jeremiah together.